Hi, I'm Dave from Hectors Smokehouse, and today I'm going to be cooking crispy pork belly with some Asian herbs and a caramel sauce, sticky caramel sauce. And these are going to be cooked on the Weber Kettle using an indirect method. I'm using Kingsford briquettes today in the cook. I'll be cooking at around about, for the first hour, around about 435F, which is around about 220, 225C. And then after the first hour, I'll be taking it back down to around about 350F, which is 180 degrees C, for the remainder of the time. Having an internal temperature of approximately 197 to 203, when it gets really nice and soft and tender, is when I'll be taking it off. So altogether, I expect the cook to be taking about 2 to 2.5 hours to actually cook the piece of pork belly and get it nice and crispy. I'll be using Kingsford briquettes today on the Weber Kettle and using an indirect method. So I'll go through the method of drying the skin, applying vinegar and salt onto the skin and letting it dry. In the video, I'll probably be leaving it for about 4 hours to dry in the refrigerator, but preferably 24 hours would be a lot better. But it will get the skin nice and get it dry and nice and crispy for when you finish it off. And yeah, so that'll take around about 2.5 hours. If you enjoy the video, please click the like button below, and also please subscribe to my channel. So this is the piece of pork belly that I'm going to cook today. So I bought this from Costco in Australia. It's quite a nice piece. It's got not massive amounts of fat in there, so it's not too bad at all. I've added a much bigger piece, but I've cut it down. I'm going to use some of it for pork belly burnt ends, and the rest of it will be used for doing this crispy pork belly skin, and with a Chinese Asian type of caramel on it as well. So what I'm going to do to prep this is I'm going to prick the skin, put lots of holes in it. I'm going to add some vinegar and some salt. I'm going to allow it then to go into the refrigerator and to dry out and try and get the skin as dry as possible. Ideally that should be overnight, but I've only got 4 or 5 hours, so that'll have to do, and if I have to do something to the skin afterwards, I will. And on the back side, on the meat side, I'm going to add some 5-spice, Chinese 5-spice, some salt and a little bit of white pepper onto there as well. So that's what I'm going to go through, and that's what I'm going to show you now. So I flipped over the pork belly, and nice piece of meat underneath there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a little bit of white pepper, not a great deal, but just to get a little bit of a sprinkling of white pepper on the back of the pork for a bit of flavour. So that goes on there. Going to be some salt going on the back. And then I'm going to add some Chinese 5-spice. If I can get this open, that is. So I've got some Chinese 5-spice here. So the intention is try and get that from a bit of a height. As I say, I don't want to be putting too much of this on. So it goes a long way, does 5-spice. So we'll put some of this on the back of it, which will add a nice flavour to the pork. And as I say, I'm actually doing a small sauce as well, which will be a caramel sauce to go with the pork. And I'm going to cook this on the Weber Kettle later on in the day. So I'm just going to pat the rub into there, and once I've done that, I'm just turning this over and I'm going to dry the skin really well. So just using a bit of paper towel, dry the skin really well, and then I'm going to use a jacquard to actually put lots of holes in it. So you can either slice it and put slices in. You see a lot of people putting slices into pork belly skin, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to prick it. You can use something like a fork and put lots of holes in with a fork, or I've got one of these things which is a tenderizer. You can get them from Amazon, and it'll put lots and lots of holes into the surface. It doesn't need to go too far. It doesn't want to get into the fat. It's just going through the skin. But what it does is it's on a spring load. Once you've unlocked it, these little blades all push through, and it puts lots and lots of holes into the surface. So that's what I'm going to end up doing, is pushing this lots and lots of times in, and that's going to actually put lots of perforations in the top, and that's going to help the skin form the crackle at the end. So I'm going to mix together 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of salt into a ramekin, mix it together thoroughly, and then I'm just going to use a silicone brush to actually brush it into the surface. This is going to allow the surface as that evaporates to be nice and dry, which is going to help form the crisp top on top of the pork. And then I'm going to put it into, once I've done that, I'll put it into the fridge. The intention is ideally if you can put it in the fridge for 24 hours. That works really, really well. I didn't have enough time, so I'm going to do this for about 4 hours. And it'll leave in there for 4 hours, and then once it comes out, I'm just going to wipe the top down. Wipe off anything that's excess on the top, add some more salt, sprinkle some more salt on there, and then it'll be ready to actually go onto the barbecue. Today I'm actually cooking on the Weber Kettle, and I'm going to be using Kingsford briquettes on there, and I'm just at the moment just lighting up a chimney. So I've got a chimney on the go, and then I'll show you how I set up the actual Weber to do the indirect cooking. So as you can see for this cook, I'm trying to do some indirect. So I've got 2 charcoal baskets on each side, which will have the heat, and the actual pork belly will sit in the middle, and that'll cover over. The pork belly will be indirect, but we're going to get it nice and hot to start with. So I've got 3/4 of a charcoal basket, all done, charcoal chimney. So I'll start to fill this up. Put some on the other side. So we'll just get some tongs and then spread them out as well, and then we should be just ready to start cooking. So I've taken the pork out of the fridge. I only did it for about 4 hours, but really ideally it needs to be about 24 hours. And then I wiped the top, dried it off a little bit more, and then just put some extra salt. And then all I'm going to do is I've got this sat on a rack underneath here, so you can see the rack below. So I've got the pork on there and putting some hot water underneath there. That'll create some steam. That should help try and keep the meat moist underneath. And if I need to, I'll top this up during the cook to make sure that I keep that moisture actually in the pan. So I'll put the pork in now. It's got indirect cooking on each side. There's no direct heat over there, so what we'll try and do now is get the skin crispy up at around 450, 500 degrees F. Try and leave it there for half an hour, maybe up to an hour. We'll see what it looks like and come back, and when it's crispy enough, we'll start to turn it back down. So the pork's been on now for approximately an hour and a half. I've ended up cooking it, the average temperature on this was about 435 F. So 435 F would be up at around about 210, 220C. So it was about 220C, 435 F for about an hour and a half so far. And you can see it's actually seems nice and crispy on top of there, which is beautiful. I've also put a probe in there to measure the temperature, and internally, you know, you can take the pork off around about 165, but it's still going to be, you know, a bit of bite in there. I'm aiming for around about 200 F, and at the moment we're about 190, so hopefully it's not going to take too long. So it's going to actually ended up cooking a lot quicker than I expected. So I'm now going to start the caramel, and into the caramel there goes a third of a cup of red wine vinegar. So there's the red wine vinegar in there. Half a cup, a good half a cup of brown sugar. So, and it needs to be pretty firmly packed brown sugar, so we need quite a bit in there. If I can get it out of this. Wait a minute. So it's a good, as I say, firmly packed, so if it's loosely packed you need to be more than half a cup. So that's roughly half a cup loosely packed. I'll just put a little bit more in there. So there you go, that should be half a cup of firmly packed in there, and then I'm going to put in a couple of star anises. So 2 pieces of star anise will go in, and then I'm going to bring that up to a simmer and simmer that for about 5 minutes. After that I'm going to add in some chicken stock and then simmer for another 5 to 6 minutes, reduce it by half and then add some lime juice, and then another 3 or 4 minutes, and that should get quite syrupy, and that'll make the actual make the caramel. So the caramel's now been on for about 5 minutes with the sugar, the star anise and the red wine vinegar. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a cup of chicken stock into there. So a cup of chicken stock, and then that carries on now, and it's going to carry on for about another 5 or 6 minutes on a simmer, and want it to reduce by about half. And then after that we're going to add some lime juice and carry on doing it. So it should end up being quite syrupy, but we'll leave that to come to a simmer now and give it another 5 or 6 minutes on a simmer. So we've done another 5 or 6 minutes with that chicken stock, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add juice of a whole lime into here. So there's half a lime going in, and then I'm going to give it another 4 or 5 minutes on the simmer and reduce it till it starts to turn into a syrup. These are really good juicy limes actually. So then we'll move it down so it gets into a syrup, and then we'll let it cool down a little bit before we actually serve it. So this is turning into a really nice caramel. It'll be delicious when it's actually reduced down a lot more. So pork belly's cooked. There it is. You can so you can hear how that is incredibly really crispy. So I'm going to turn it over, and then I'm going to start to try and slice it up from this side into small pieces. You can hear the crack. And there you go. So you can see how that and how crunchy that is just unbelievable. Really good. So I'll cut a few of these pieces. And again, that's beautiful and crisp and lovely and tender and moist in the middle. So this is going to go really well. So there you go, all finished. Cut up into cubes. We've added the Thai basil, the coriander, the mint, some chilli, and obviously it's got the caramel sauce on there as well, and some spring onions. Absolutely delicious. This is going to be gorgeous. And then I've done rice with some peas in there as well.